Okay, Andrea Lowe-Garwood. First of all, I am a disciple of Christ. That's who I am first and foremost. I am a lover of life. I am a lover of people. And I am the proud mother of one son. And God has blessed me with 4 bonus children by marriage. I call them bonus children. And so my life, I try as best as possible to enjoy what I do. If I'm doing something and I'm not happy, I really don't do it. Since I met you, baby, all I hear is
There are few places where people feel safe and completely let down their guard. Inside a church is one of them. But when gunshots ring out in the middle of a church service, sending a congregation scampering in fear and leaving one member murdered on holy ground, one can't help but wonder, is there anywhere safe? As a young girl, Andrea Lowe was happy. She loved life, and she maintained this outlook into her adult life. And at 47 years old, she found herself living a fulfilled life. She had moved to Trelawney from St. James a few years earlier and was absolutely loving it. Independent, educated, and happy are words that could describe her in that season of her life. She had family whom she adored and who were very supportive of her, and a career as a manager at one of Jamaica's top commercial banks. Things were definitely going well for this career woman. Though she was happy, there was a void in her life, and she wanted to fill it. One afternoon, Andrea got a pen and paper and wrote down the type of man she thought would fill the gap. They say you better be careful what you ask God for, because soon Jeffrey Garwood would come walking into her life, and he checked every box and more. Jeffrey was 8 years Andrea's senior, and he wasn't about to play around. He wanted to put a ring on it. But though he was the kind of man Andrea was looking for, she expressed that she was somewhat scared about the rapid pace of the relationship. But what is to be must be, and the two soon became inseparable.
I remember writing on a piece of paper the kind of husband I wanted, and I was more so very specific. When the husband turned up, I said, God, no, not so quick, I never mean it so. But I was happy, so I kind of rejected the person at the time. But then it was one of the best decisions that I've ever made.
As two mature individuals coming together, they were not without baggage. Andrea had a son in his early 20s, and as for Jeffrey, he had been previously married and had 4 children, 3 of whom were adults themselves. But this did not faze the two lovebirds, and they walked down the aisle, pledging to be together for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, until death. Life in a blended family is never easy, and for Andrea and Jeffrey, it didn't come without its challenges. Andrea went from being a mother of one adult son to having 5 mostly adult children in her life, and Jeffrey's youngest lived with them. One characteristic Andrea loved about her new husband, though, was his love and devotion for his children and extended family at large.
You know, blended family, different background. We struggle at times because we don't know each other and we have different personalities. You're not their mother. They're not my children. My husband has a different relationship with them from what I have with them. And so it was rocky at times, you know, but the journey, it taught me a lot of patience. It taught me patience. I was particularly drawn to my husband because of his immense love for his children. My husband loved his children like cooked food. You understand? His children were his life. As a matter of fact, not only his children, but his family. And that was something that I admired. You understand? So, just one child lived with us, the smaller one. So, you know, we navigated the rough and the good patches and all of that. So the experience was good.
Coming together with Jeffrey opened up a new dimension of life for Andrea. Now she had someone to share not only her bed, but her dreams and ambitions. Though apart, Andrea and Jeffrey were successful in their own rights. They wanted to build together, and that they did. They bought a lovely home in a gated community in Trelawney. Life was good, not perfect, but good, and others could see the love they shared, and they were intent on enjoying their lives together.
We ensured that we did a lot of things together. We ensured that most times we never let the sun go down on our wrath. But it was difficult for me because in previous relationship, malice, yo, and you have to force up on me.
Little did they know that death would come knocking sooner rather than later. Sometimes death comes without a warning. It pounces like a thief in the night. It robs loved ones of goodbyes and steals one that is treasured so suddenly. On Tuesday, July 14, 2020, Jeffrey Garwood was going about his business as a tour bus operator when tragedy struck. In a sudden moment of misfortune, his blue Toyota bus was hit head-on. He, along with the driver who hit him, had to be cut from their mangled vehicles.
Left the morning. Went to work. My husband was at home. Get my regular calls, but the calls were more frequent to the point that I was annoyed at times because I'm at work and my husband is calling me because we had just moved to the house and he was calling me about the landscaping and showing me pictures, but I'm busy. Okay, fine. So I went home. So we were having a series of street meetings in Scarlett Hall. So the plan for the week. So the plan was that we're gonna go for the entire week. So having gone Sunday night and Monday night, went home to pick up my husband, and my husband saying that he's not coming, he's going to help another neighbor. I was a bit livid, but I did not say it. I just left. Went to church, had a very good time. The message was awesome. went home, and I knew my husband wouldn't be there at the time. Watch a program on TV, the Sujan's show. And I deliberately didn't call my husband before, because I said, let me just watch it and give him time. But after the show, I didn't hear my husband come home. I looked through the window. The house or the neighbor was still dark. Immediately I felt different. I did. And I called his phone. And somebody answered his phone. That was strange. And it's like the person is saying, him can't talk to you now. And they hung up the phone on me. And I called back the phone, they didn't answer. And I remember sending one message to my husband, Jeffrey, and he didn't respond. So immediately, the first thing I thought about was that he might have been robbed, because we just moved to the house and we were the only ones living on the street. So immediately I said, you know what, I need to get out of the house, because if they rob him, they have his set of keys, so they're going to come to me. I was thinking about death. And I went to my friends, and my friend called his number and somebody answered the phone. And afterwards, the person told him that he was in an accident. And the moment I heard that, I knew that it cannot be good, because the fact that my husband is not answering me, I'm not accustomed to that. I'm not accustomed to anybody answering my husband's phone. That for me said it all, that something had gone awry.
And just like that, a family was plunged into mourning. In the face of death and grief, disagreements can arise quickly and things can get fiery real fast. And when it comes to the belongings left behind by the dead, family members' true colors quickly rise to the surface like oil on water, unable to mix or be disguised. Unfortunately, in death, Jeffrey's wishes weren't clear, and his family had their own idea of how possessions should be split. What's more is that it was alleged that Andrea's house was at the center of discussions. It is believed that Andrea was being pressured to sell the house she had bought with her late husband and split the money among his children.
I love this man, is my husband. So I'm thinking that this is what I want to do. Family members are thinking another thing. But then I came to the realization that, guess what? Them hurting just as much as I am hurting.
As Jeffrey's funeral date approached, the threats against Andrea started coming. One family member says Andrea was told that if she showed up at the funeral, she would be killed. She took this threat very seriously and requested police escort. They say time heals all wounds, but would there be enough time to heal the discord that existed between Andrea and her late husband's family? On Sunday, January 31, 2021, before heading off to church, Andrea made what we know now to be her final Facebook post. In it, she openly prayed for her son. That Sunday, Andrea went to church dressed in purple and gold. She might have thought it would be a normal, spirit-filled Sunday, but this Sunday would turn out to be anything but normal. As Andrea was getting ready for church, 3 men were on their way to church as well, and their intentions had nothing to do with praise and worship. Their only goal was to carry out the unthinkable, and eventually Andrea's path would cross with one of the men, and this encounter would be most deadly. Andrea arrived at church and took her seat. Soon after, a young man wearing a cap and a mask sat just behind her.
Going out, I saw this young man with a hat on. It was kind of looking hard to me, and I took note of it because men don't wear at the church in our situation here in Jamaica. It sparked my attention, not in a bad way or anything of the sort, but I wanting to go to him, just talk to him a while, but I didn't. I just passed. So when I was coming back, I figured, like any new person, I would have gone over to welcome the individual. And then again, I felt I need to leave him alone. I was literally stunned and frozen to see lights just flashing, and my eyes were on all these lights that was going towards this young lady's back. I couldn't have seen his face because he had the hat and the mask on. So I didn't know what he looked like in terms of facial recognition.
News about the woman who was killed in church spread like wildfire, and police were under pressure to catch the brazen murderer and anyone else who may have had a hand in this vicious killing. As it turned out, when the killer exited the church, trying to make his escape, he was seen by a retired cop who fired one shot in the air. This startled the killer, causing him to drop his cellular phone as he made his way toward the getaway vehicle. As ridiculous as him dropping his phone may sound, this was an important piece in the puzzle. Meanwhile, the driver of the getaway vehicle would also have an encounter with cops hours later. It didn't take the police long to crack this case wide open. Police soon established a motive and arrested 3 individuals: Dwight Bingham, Leon Hines, and Javon Garwood, a stepson of Andrea Lowe-Garwood. Bingham was identified as the triggerman, Hines as the getaway driver, and evidence led the police to believe that it was the family squabble that led to Andrea Lowe-Garwood's demise.
And I think maybe this is breaking news, that I'm going to let you know that the suspect is now in custody. He was taken in by his attorney a short while ago. It is a family dispute. Based on the investigation that we have done, there's no other reason. We know that there are other theories that are out there, but it is solely a family dispute.
They say never speak ill of the dead, but in death, Andrea was thrown before the court of public opinion and was found guilty by many, though her side was never heard. The vicious comments on social media from people who had never met Andrea Lowe-Garwood justifying her murder was overwhelming. The venom spewed seemed to drown out the voices of those who were against the savage murder. In July of 2023, just over 3 years after Andrea was killed, her stepson, who was initially believed to be the mastermind behind the deadly plot, was freed of murder and conspiracy to murder charges after the prosecution's case crumbled due to lack of evidence and Bingham refused to testify against him.
You had evidence that would show some amount of suspicion, but we needed to go a little bit further. We needed a little bit more to be able to pass the threshold of the no case. An assessment was done after Leon Hines, that was the taxi driver for the killer, Bingham, gave evidence, and I think Garwood's son also gave evidence. And when the Crown assessed the rest of the material, that was left, it would not have taken the case any higher. So the Crown would still have fallen short of being able to establish the prima facie case, the requisite threshold required as a matter of law. So what the Crown had would have been suspicion, but the Crown needed to go a little bit further. And the only way we would have been able to do that, which we hoped from day one we would have been able to do, was to engage Bingham, the killer, in plea negotiation. Right? As we have done in many other cases. The missionary case that is going on now, that is what we did. But you have a former court giving evidence against the other in terms of the plea negotiation that we engaged in. But as I said, up to time and time again, we sought to engage them and they refused.
In the end, Dwight Bingham, who was the triggerman, was sentenced to 45 years in prison for the murder of Andrea Lowe-Garwood. He will have to serve at least 30 years before he is eligible for parole. Leon Hines, the getaway driver who testified against Andrea's stepson and Bingham, was previously sentenced to 6 years in prison.